Well, hello, John. Welcome. It's so lovely to see you again. It's been a while.
Hi, Naomi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I
How,
miss seeing your face.
sorry?
I miss seeing your face.
Yes, I miss you too. I miss you, and I'm very excited about your next training with Delphi in May, treating sexual self-injury and sexual compulsivity from an attachment perspective. And I was just wanting to give our audience a little bit of a taster of what they can expect from this training. And when we talk about self-injury, we think about self-injury, we often approach it from the idea of it being a sort of like a self-soothing behavior, mood state regulation, and with sexual compulsive behavior, also self-soothing, but also we can think about that from a reenactment perspective too. But approaching it from an attachment perspective is a whole other way of, understanding these types of behaviours. So I'm wondering if you can say a little bit about these behaviours from an attachment perspective.
Well, it all kind of comes together because we know that it's during the attachment process that people learn their emotional regulation skills. They also develop models of themselves and others based on how they're being treated. And what we'll be talking about an awful lot are people whose early life experiences are characterized by sexual and physical abuse, but also by parental disengagement, disattunement, non-availability. And I think part of the attachment field, or at least the stuff that we're interested in, is moving a little bit more from not just seeing that acts of commission or omission disrupt attachment, and that produces attachment disruption effects, but also just that actually our little brains are recording when all that's going on. It's just not being recorded at a verbal level, but what's being recorded are attachment memories. And so this goes to some of the work of Stern and other people, years ago in the analytic world, which interestingly we're bringing into the modern world, which is to literally say, if when you were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, you were badly hurt enough to mess up with attachment bonds, what did you actually learn? What were the nonverbal thoughts and perspectives that you incorporated during those times? So what we're doing more nowadays is looking at a variety of behaviors, distress reduction behaviors. Self-injurious behavior and sexual compulsivity are actually not always present in the same individual. They represent slightly different problems, but they're two issues that therapists often are most challenged by. Certainly, I'm sure you, just like myself, get a lot of consultation requests. What do I do about this? It's driving me crazy. This person's cutting themselves, or they're sexually acting out. There's HIV and hepatitis and everything out there. How can I keep my clients safe, et cetera? They're very challenging ideas. What we're trying to do here, what you and I will be doing, is looking at self-injury. I don't know if self-soothing is right exactly as we understand it nowadays, but that self-injury is a way for the person to reset the sort of cascade of negative thoughts and feelings they're having from those very early triggered events by, in some sense, waking up. So some of that, you work a lot in dissociation, you especially would note it that way, but a lot of self-injurious and sexually compulsive behaviors occur during dissociative states. And dissociation is highly linked to attachment dysregulation, especially disorganized attachment, which we'll talk a little bit about. And to add to that, then you have a therapist who is that attachment trigger for the client in a million different ways. And we will want to capitalize on that, like the analysts do, for example, and take advantage of it. But obviously, there's a huge blowback behind that. So I think what we'll do is, in the first of the two things you have me do, we'll talk about early attachment memories, attachment, stuff like that, how easily activatable it is, what the content actually is. And it's going to be out of conscious awareness because it's nonverbal, right? And then when you encounter relational triggers in the modern world, those early thoughts, perspectives, models, emotions, et cetera, are going to come flooding into current awareness. And they're going to require some kind of intervention on the part of the client. So as you know, and I know you agree with me on this stuff, this requires us to take a compassionate, non-countertransferential view that these people are just doing their job description, in the sense of, if you were dealt with that kind of chaotic, crazy, intrusive, contradictory childhood models of self and other, what's going to happen later on when you're starving for attention and affection, you don't have a strong sense of who you are, there are relational triggers all over the place. And then, by the way, the treatment for that is you have to form a relationship with a new attachment object who has great power, who you may have complex feelings about, and for whom it all has to occur in secrecy, by the way. They also have to open themselves up to all the pain that they tried to avoid for their whole life. So it's sort of like, yes, welcome to the problem. Well, we have a treatment for the problem, which is go into the problem or reactivate the problem in a way. So this may pull on, and I'll be talking about some Buddhist mindfulness and compassion kinds of ideas too. How do we maintain a steady, reliable, non-boundary violating, supportive, caring force when facing such suffering? And, as everybody knows, it makes the psychotherapy process very, very, I don't know, challenging is too strong a word, but it clearly pulls on our abilities to maintain equanimity in those kinds of situations. Yeah. So I think the self-injury part will sound more familiar to listeners, although we have new developments in that area. This compulsive sexual behavior, I don't know what you think, Naomi, but it's not really addressed that much yet. It's also normally seen from a sex addiction perspective, which I think is really generally a bad idea. Yeah. If you're a sex addiction person, I'm not going to be making fun of you, but I just think it's a limited model and we need to go way beyond that. And we have to look at some of the unexamined assumptions that would go along with an addiction model. But what are these people doing? What is their behavior in support of? What were they seeking out? They're not really seeking out sex. They're seeking out intimacy and closeness, but those are also the most challenging and scary things in their lives. And how does the therapist sit in that, especially if the therapist is of the gender orientation, gender identity that the client might find to be a potential romantic partner, or if the therapist looks like or acts like their early perpetrator, how's that going to trigger stuff? And then how do we actually sit in there and sit in what we may even worry about our risk, our forensic risk at being present when clients seemingly so out of control. But I think ultimately what this stuff does is that these two kinds of problems provide massive opportunities for us to really help people in deep ways. For problems that, and I hate to say it, but we therapists may drop the ball on these problems a little bit because they're so triggering themselves and because they can upset us and they can activate our own fears of liability or whatever. And not only that, but maybe our own unworked through early relational traumas that maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, John, I think this is a really timely workshop, and I'm very, very glad that you have agreed to share this with our audience in Australia and New Zealand and a few other places around the world too that we can reach online now as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you in May, and until then, stay well and see you online again soon.
Oh, okay. It's a deal, Naomi. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, John. See you soon.
Bye-bye.